Hi, my name is Mark D. Copoulos, and I'm a Philadelphia criminal defense and real estate lawyer. And today I would like to talk a little bit about the state of evictions in Philadelphia since the COVID-19 pandemic. I was walking to court the other day, and I saw outside the eviction court there were dozens and dozens of people who had locked arms and were basically preventing anyone from entering or exiting the court. And this was to protest the resumption of eviction proceedings in Philadelphia as of August 31st, the moratorium that City Council had put out basically halting evictions expired, and so now there are some evictions being filed. But what those protesters perhaps are not really aware of is that while evictions have resumed in name, they have not really resumed in fact in the county of Philadelphia as of September 22nd, 2020. And what do I mean by that? Specifically, right now, the Philadelphia landlord-tenant officer is processing about 10 lockouts per day, and that is for the entire county of Philadelphia. And the office of the sheriff of Philadelphia, who's responsible for serving writs of possession to basically dispossess people, is accepting filings, but has dramatically reduced, similar to the officer, the number of filings that they'll process on any given day. So while eviction proceedings and ejectment proceedings have resumed in name, they perhaps haven't really resumed in fact. And the sense is that things will probably not get back to normal for a while. Right now, if you file an eviction in Philadelphia, you'll receive a court date in December, and then in December you will still need to go in and get possession of a judgment for possession, and then you'll need to set up a lockout with either the Philadelphia landlord-tenant lawyer or with the sheriff or with another licensed tenant officer, and that process again may take 30 to 60 days from there. So realistically, if you're a landlord in Philadelphia right now and you have a property, the likelihood that you're going to get possession through the courts before January 2021, if you haven't started the proceedings yet, is very, very low. And so that kind of leads me to the purpose of, or the discussion in this blog, which is what are some alternatives that you may have to eviction during the COVID-19 pandemic. The first alternative that you may have is something called colloquially cash for keys. And essentially what that is, and a lot of landlords are doing this right now, is they're going out, they're talking to the tenant, they're saying, look, I know you're on hard times, we're in an emergency situation, what can I do to make it easier for you to leave? And if the tenant is receptive to taking a couple months rent, or maybe a month's rent, or their security deposit right away, in consideration for their leaving the property, and everybody just kind of walks away, the landlord changes the locks and that's the end of it, that may be a win for everyone involved. And I have seen a lot of cases right now resolved that way because the courts have become so ineffective. So if you're a landlord and you haven't had a dialogue with your tenant, now more than ever, it may make sense to kind of sit down with them, speak with them if possible, and see if there's some way to resolve this with a cash for keys type exchange. And obviously, if you do that, you're going to want to draw up some sort of settlement and release agreement where the tenant is waiving any rights to possession of the property. But if you do it that way, that may be an effective means of getting somebody out of your property. Another method that may be effective even while the courts are effectively closed would be just direct negotiation with the tenant. And this is something that my office has done in cases where the tenant is not represented. And what it generally involves is sending a strong letter to the tenant, something similar to a notice to vacate, but kind of leaving the door open for either a cash for keys negotiation or some sort of negotiation, non-trial disposition, and non-litigation disposition. And what you can say in the letter is, look, we don't want to file this eviction. We want to resolve this without the courts if we can. We don't want to give you the stigma of an eviction on your record. Let's find a way to work this out. And again, this has been effective in a number of cases in terms of just coming to a negotiated resolution kind of like a judgment by agreement, but without the courts. And given, again, the ineffectiveness of the courts right now, it may be a plausible way to go. And finally, the third option that you may have to an eviction, obviously this would not apply where there's a tenant, where someone is paying rent, or where there's a written lease. But if you have somebody who's just in your property, you can still proceed with an ejectment right now. And so if it's a squatter, if it's somebody who doesn't have a landlord-tenant relationship, either because there was never a written lease or because they've never paid you any rent, you may be able to file an ejectment. And the court is at least allowing the filing of ejectments right now. And so what that means is you can file the ejectment, you can serve the squatter with a complaint. The time frame is going to start running. The time that they have to respond will start to run. And if they don't respond to that, you'll be able to take a default judgment and move for possession. Now, again, the ejectments aren't really running in terms of lockouts right now either, but you can begin that process, and that's about a 5-month process. And the hope is that by the time you're eligible for a lockout with the ejectment, things will be kind of up and running, and you'll be able to take care of that. So those are some of the options right now, given that the eviction court, despite what those protesters think, is still pretty much shut down. And again, you can file an eviction right now. If you file the eviction, you're going to, like I said, get a court date in December and probably get possession in January. But again, those protesters who were kind of standing outside the courthouse locking their arms maybe weren't really aware of some of the information in this blog, really, that not a lot of people are getting dispossessed right now, and that's probably a good thing. So again, my name is Mark Copoulos. I'm a Philadelphia criminal defense and real estate lawyer. If you have someone who's in your property that you need to get out and you would like to try to employ some of these methods, the cash for keys, the negotiation, and ejectment if it's appropriate, feel free to contact my office. And even an eviction, I mean, we could get started right now, but it's just going to be a little while. Feel free to call my office. Our direct line is 267-535-9776, and we will process this eviction as quickly as it will be done, as it can be done. Your case will not be handed off or delegated to an associate or a paralegal or someone else. It will likely be myself who takes care of it. I will give you my direct line, and we will work to get this thing done. So again, my name is Mark Copoulos. Thank you, as always, for watching my blog. If you have any questions, feel free to give us a call, and have a great day. Take care.